I'm Umbrian Libris. Let's talk about Calyrex. It was a big focus of the Crown Tundra, and whether or not you liked that part of the DLC can hinge in large part on whether you liked Calyrex and its story. You've seen the thumbnail, you've seen the title, you know how I felt, but let's break it down. From its very first reveal, I did not like the look of Calyrex. I think I've established in previous videos that I don't like Pokemon that look too top-heavy, like Pokemon with big bodies and tiny legs. Calyrex isn't quite like that, but I think it bothers me for similar reasons. If its crown and collar were a little bit smaller, and if it had proportionate legs instead of looking like Jack Skellington without pants on, I'd be a lot more comfortable with it. But as it is, I don't like it at all. Its concept, though, and its inspiration, now that is quite a bit more interesting. It's got a bit of rabbit, a bit of deer, maybe it's a jackalope, but Bulba Trainer, a small Pokemon YouTuber like me, made a great video where he lays out a very convincing argument that Calyrex is largely based on the Greek god Pan, or his Roman counterpart, Faunus. You should go watch his video. It significantly raised my opinion of Calyrex as a whole. And make sure to check out the rest of the channel as well. Bulba Trainer deserves way more subscribers than he has.
Is that opinion like from a 1 to a 2 out of 10?
I would say it was actually more like a 1 to a 3 out of 10.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, it was huge. The story of Calyrex and the legend of the King of Bountiful Harvests, on a very superficial level, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. I think it's got some good ideas. Put very simply, it's the story of a legendary Pokemon that was treated like a king, like a god almost. But the traditions that give it power, that reinforced the people's faith in it, were lost to time. And it's only when you, the player character, come along and show it some kindness and restore its statue that it starts to regain power. I like that. I really like that, but I've played the story before in a much more satisfying game, Okami. Okami is one of my all-time favorite games. It's based on Shinto mythology, and the protagonist is a wolf named Amaterasu, who is a representation of the sun goddess. 100 years before the events of the game, Amaterasu died after defeating the monster Orochi. At the start of the game proper, Amaterasu is reincarnated, but they have so little power that most of the people only see them as a plain white wolf or a dog. And by that time, most of the people don't even believe in the gods anyway. So Amaterasu has to use what little power they have to go around and do good deeds, basically, and help old ladies and feed the wildlife and restore wilted trees to life. And in doing so, earn praise, which you can use for upgrades to make Amaterasu stronger. So in this case, the power of the gods literally depends on the people believing that the gods are looking out for them. It's a perfectly implemented and satisfying system to represent this concept. When you compare that to Calyrex's story, which uses essentially the same concept of gods drawing power from the faith of the people, Calyrex's take on it falls flat, because Calyrex almost never takes initiative. What brings it out in the first place is you, the player character, doing a good deed, which maybe helps the villagers remember Calyrex better, but still, it's your initiative, not Calyrex's. You're also the one who battles the horse to protect Freezington, and sure, Calyrex diverts the horse to stop it from running over this poor woman, but nobody even sees it do so. Calyrex isn't the one earning the praise. You are. And those are really the only good deeds in the story. Calyrex doesn't really do anything to earn the faith of the people. And that's only one angle that I dislike about the story of Calyrex. If we may stick with the gameplay side of things a little bit longer, it really bothers me how linear the story is. And not just linear, but every objective is laid out clearly and obviously. You're never left wondering, how do I move on from here? How do I complete this objective? Before you even meet Calyrex, if you interact with the statue, it tells you that it's incomplete. So even if you went in completely blind and had no idea whatsoever what Calyrex looked like, you're immediately on the lookout for something to complete the statue. And it doesn't get any better from there. It's all go here, do this, every step of the way. You're never given the liberty of trying. You never have the opportunity to be wrong. And that's really important for satisfying gameplay. If you can't be wrong, then you never get the rush of being right, of figuring something out for yourself. And it doesn't help that there's a lot of information that you're given repeatedly. Between what we read in the mayor's books or on the pedestals and what we learn directly from Calyrex and a few other sources. Like, there's multiple sources that tell you about how Calyrex's power relies on the faith of the people. But even in a more practical sense, I think there's 4 times that you're told that ice root carrots are for ice types, shade root carrots are for ghost types. And I kind of get them not wanting you to make the wrong selection by accident, but like, even when you're about to plant the carrot seed, Calyrex says, "Oh, it must have been a ghost type. Are you sure this is what you want?" Yes, I have heard this before. Can we just move on now? The repetition is exhausting, especially considering that most of them are sources that you can go back to if you need a refresher. You don't need to be reminded at every moment. And then there's the problem of the story itself. The story as a whole has some significant inconsistencies that make me raise an eyebrow. Although, to be clear, the intentional inconsistency about what Calyrex's steed was like, that I love. It's my favorite part of the story. I love stories where you can't tell what is true. And in this case, your actions as the player literally decide what the truth is. You're presented with conflicting evidence about whether Calyrex's ride was black and ghostly or white and icy. The statue in town looks generic, and 2 of the mayor's books explicitly state that nobody knows which one is true. Essentially, the king's steed is Schrodinger's steed, existing in a state of quantum superposition where it's simultaneously both Glastrier and Spectrier, until your choice as the player of where to plant the carrot seeds collapses its wave function into one or the other. I love that. And a related thing that I really appreciate is that the story is a bit fragmented when it comes to the Pokédex entries. Normally, you get to see one of 2 dex entries, right? Whichever one is in your game. But because you have to make the choice between Glastrier and Spectrier, you also only get to see the Pokédex entries for one of them and one form of Calyrex, without trading or looking things up. And those entries have different information, so it's hard to tell which parts apply to the story of Calyrex as a whole, and which ones only apply to one version of Calyrex's story. Like Calyrex saving Pokemon from a meteor strike, that only appears in the Shadow Rider dex entry in S.H.I.E.L.D. So did that also happen in the Glastrier timeline as well? But there's other inconsistencies that don't work the same way. For example, Calyrex says that it's been many centuries since it was able to make a radiant flower. But the mayor says his great-grandfather knew how to make the Rains of Unity. That's only 3 generations before him. I can't know for sure, but I think 3 generations is not enough to stretch back many centuries.
Unless you're Avatar Kyoshi.
Now, it is possible that great-granddad knew how to make the Rains of Unity, but never actually had the materials to make one. But if great-granddad only ever knew the theory of it, why would the mayor be worried? The theory of it literally comes down to one rhyming couplet that he knows by heart. And apparently it's enough for Peony, so I don't think the technique being lost to time is really the problem here. There's also the statue, which the mayor says has been broken since he was a child. So at least, say, 60 or 70 years, maybe longer. But Peony finds the missing crown out back behind the inn. So this big wooden crown has just been sitting out behind one of the buildings, and in 60 plus years, not a single person saw it and went, huh, come on. Or how about this? A fairly consistent theme throughout multiple sources is that Calyrex draws its power from the faith of the people, right? But, according to the pedestals, Calyrex arrived in the Crown Tundra regal but wounded. The people help it heal, and to show its gratitude, Calyrex makes the crops grow. And then they start to treat Calyrex as a king. So if Calyrex had the power to make the crops grow before being treated as a king, then Calyrex had the power before it had the faith, didn't it? And honestly, that is more in line with what actually happens in the game, because Calyrex manages to get back to full power without any of the villagers actually seeing it, and making only one concrete display of some power. Or even if we accept that Calyrex does indeed get its power from the faith of the people, how exactly did the people forget about Calyrex? Because faith gives Calyrex power, Calyrex displays power by making crops and such grow before their very eyes, so the people believe in Calyrex, which again gives it power. So it's a positive feedback loop. The cycle reinforces itself, which makes it stable. It wouldn't just be lost to time. Something would have to break the cycle. Calyrex blames the people. I know better than to count on humans to remember me. This proves beyond doubt that I cannot simply rely on human faith if I want my powers to return. But I don't think that would be the case. Say things have been good for a while, so the people become complacent. The traditions of praising and making offerings to Calyrex and crafting the Reigns of Unity every year fall out of use for a few seasons. Calyrex gets weaker, the harvests suffer. All it takes is a small show of power from Calyrex to get a few things going again. It doesn't need to convince everyone because this is a positive feedback loop. It will pick back up again. The failing point of the cycle is Calyrex. If Calyrex refuses to do its part, then yeah, the people would lose faith. Like this villager says. Well, if it exists, why doesn't it heal the land around here so we can grow crops for a change? Yeah, why doesn't it? Because it felt offended that one time people didn't make an offering to it? Get over it. How petty can you be? You're literally letting this land die slowly. Which, frankly, doesn't surprise me, because Calyrex, throughout the story, shows itself to be arrogant and self-centered. Not only does it blame the people for their lack of faith, it shows no problem taking away the agency of others. It uses Peony's body without his permission, interrupts him mid-sentence when it wants to talk to you, leaves him to wake up outdoors, alone, in the cold, and never once addresses Peony directly to say thank you or I'm sorry for using you. And it's the same thing with his horse. I'm not convinced that Glastrier or Spectrier ever accepted Calyrex in a truly friendly and respectful way. The Reigns of Unity aren't just reigns. Through these reigns did the king send its power, in order to tame and control its proud steed. Sounds like they're used for mind control. And Calyrex never takes responsibility for letting the people of the Crown Tundra nearly die. There is a bit of character growth at the end where it realizes that it was feeling depressed, basically, and that it was taking it out on the people. But there was no apology. There was no attempt at repairing the relationship with the people. Even though it says that it's now back to its full power, Calyrex shows no desire to actually make the crops grow again now that it can. All it wants is to join you on your adventure. And of course it bothers me that these are supposed to be fusion forms instead of just one Pokemon riding another. And that you literally catch two Pokemon with the same Pokeball. But you know what? In this ocean of reasons I dislike Calyrex, these are just another drop. And I haven't even told you the one big thing that really, truly ruined Calyrex to me, and to a degree, ruined the Pokemon world too. Calyrex having human-level sentience. What makes Pokemon special to me, part of what attracted me to Pokemon when I was a kid, was the idea of exploring the wilderness of this world, a world that I have always thought of as just an alternate version of our own, and befriending all of these amazing creatures. I love all of the weird and amazing creatures that inhabit our own world too, past and present. But since I can't make friends with a jaguar, Pokemon was the closest thing. But I liked them as animals, as something wilder than humans, something more in tune with their natural world. And Pokemon communicating in full, complex sentences in a human language takes that away. In the anime, there's telepathy everywhere, and that's different. And even in the games, Calyrex is not the first Pokemon to speak. There's been examples of it since Generation 1. But before now, most instances had some specific circumstance that could help explain their speech. Some Pokemon, like Copycat's Doduo or Team Rocket's Murkrow, could be said to be mimicking human speech. Others, like Marowak's Ghost or the Backpacker that turns out to be a Zoroark, are likely to be making illusions rather than actually speaking. Even N, who can understand what Pokemon are saying, I think he's just more in tune with the ways that Pokemon communicate, like Caesar Milan with dogs or Jackson Galaxy with cats. Natural Harmonia Gropius, Pokemon Whisperer. And most recently, Rotom decks can talk quite a bit, but only from inside the Pokedex. So it's fair to assume that it's at least aided by technology with some AI and text-to-speech and something like that. But with Calyrex, I don't think there's any way around the fact that Calyrex has human-level intelligence and is able to understand and communicate in a human language. And yeah, I kind of hate that. It takes one of the aspects of the anime that bothers me the most, which is treating Pokemon as if they were just humans in animal bodies, and puts that into the games, into the primary canon. I do see many ways that Calyrex's story could have been done without making these mistakes that I talked about. But this video is very long and rambling already, so if you want to hear my ideas for how to make Calyrex better, let me know. Maybe I'll do that some other time. I'm sure some of you actually liked Calyrex's story, and if you did, please tell me why. And if you didn't, did I cover your qualms, or was there something else? Are there more reasons to hate Calyrex? Let me know. Thank you for watching, and thank you to luxury patron Ethan from Chicago and everyone else that helps me continue making these videos. I'll see you in the next chapter.